right, hello to my statistics students that are doing distance learning. I'm Mr. Woods. I already introduced myself in my tech video, but this video is more focused on the course itself. Okay, so statistics. You chose to take statistics, and I promise you I'm going to do my best to make it something that you'll hopefully enjoy. It definitely has a lot of real-world application, especially lately, considering all the data that's being produced from the coronavirus pandemic. But there are so many jobs that use statistics nowadays. There's so much data that's constantly being collected from everybody. You talk about all the apps, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Google. Anytime you search for anything, there's so much information. So this class is really sort of the beginning grounds of understanding that large world of data that exists out there. So we may not answer some deep stats questions in this class. Feel free to ask them if you want. We're here to sort of lay the groundwork for future explorations in statistics. But we're definitely going to start out today talking about how statistics can be used to sort of impact the world. Let's just put it that way. There's no doubt that in our modern time, decisions don't really get made unless there's data to back it up. That's just as simple as it gets. They made a decision to open schools back up. They didn't just have a hunch feeling about that. They looked at data to help them form that decision. They did apply their own opinions to that data, but again, they were put in charge for a reason to look at it and make their best decision, okay? But they definitely looked at data to make those calls, all right? To begin us today and to start off this year, we are really just going to focus on the broad idea of what statistics can do. And we're going to get a little controversial here. And you're going to give me your feedback in this play pause it video, so be prepared to think and type. I'm going to go ahead and display 4 questions for you, 4 very, we'll say, polarizing questions. Well, not all of them, but here's the 4 questions. Does drinking diet drinks cause negative health effects? Does wearing a mask prevent the spread of COVID-19? That one could be hard to agree upon. 3. Does smoking cigarettes cause negative health effects? Does smoking e-cigarettes or vaping cause negative health effects? So I'm going to pause the video, and what I need you to do is I need you to type in your opinions on these. I don't want you to just say yes or no. You can say you don't know, but I want you to provide something that you've heard, okay? Like maybe say, my friends think this, or my parents think this. That's fine, because you probably haven't researched any of this. If you have researched it at all, quote that. I don't really care, but tell me what your opinion is of it, and tell me why you think that, okay? I'm not going to judge you, and you don't have to share everything with me, but these are the types of questions that are hard to answer in some cases, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pause it. All right, so let's talk about these questions. I'll look at your replies, but let's start with the first one, which is not that big of a deal, right? Does drinking diet drinks cause negative health effects? I have drank diet drinks for a very long time. I've heard a lot of people tell me that they cause cancer. I've not heard of anybody dying with them or from drinking them, but people definitely sometimes have opinions on this. But again, this one is not as divisive as some other of these questions on here, okay? Like the next one. Does wearing a mask prevent the spread of COVID-19? Okay, now in our school, we obviously have mandates for covering your face with a mask and your nose. If you're at home, so if you're stuck at home, you don't have to really wear one, but what do you think about this? I'm not really going to share my opinion on it, but it's just interesting to think about how, there are scientists out there that are trying to study this, right? And they're collecting data, and they have a process for it, right? Number 3, I'm pretty sure every single person that lives today will say yes on this, right? Every single person will say yes. Okay? There is no doubt that cigarettes cause cancer. It's actually been proven. Statistically, it's been proven. Okay? And it's hard to prove something statistically, but this is one example where, without a doubt, we know that it causes cancer. Okay? But what about number 4? We have smoking e-cigarettes, vaping, cause negative health effects. Well, we don't know, do they? Are they safer than cigarettes? Are they a safer alternative, right? It depends on who you know and what you've heard from who, right? The fact of the matter is that the research is there's just not enough of it. There's just not enough. But how on earth, and we're going to compare number 3 to number 4 here. How do we know without a doubt, like we know smoking cigarettes causes cancer, but we don't know that vaping has negative health effects? How did that come about? Okay, because I'll go ahead and tell you this. Cigarettes used to be smoked in hospitals. So what happened? What was the process for sort of changing our country, a large group of people's opinions on cigarette smoking? So I'm going to put a link in the video of a video. So we're putting a video in a video, and it goes through the journey of the statistics and the process of how they eventually proved that smoking causes cancer. Okay? So go ahead and watch that, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Okay, so you watch the video. And there's a lot of lingo in there that is very statistical that we're actually going to define here in a bit. But you can see the process. It took years, decades, millions of dollars worth of labor in collecting data and filling out surveys, and time and effort. Thousands of studies had to be done. The cigarette companies were giving the researchers trouble, so there's ethics involved where these companies are going to lose money, so it's so complicated to convince somebody that this has a bad effect, right? So that video hopefully gives you a perspective for number 4, how difficult it can be to prove something. So right now we don't know about vaping, right? But I did find an article that I want you guys to look at. So I'm gonna, it's a very short article, tiny article, but I want you to read it. I'm gonna go ahead and link it now so that you can read it. Okay, so you read the article. Now I'm gonna ask you some questions about this article, and you can keep in mind what we saw in the video, right? With how they showed that smoking caused cancer. Let's think about this article and about the vaping, okay? And answer these questions. All right, so you answered those questions, and what you see in this article is it seems really well made. I'm gonna go and pull it up on my screen. It is the Heart and Stroke. What is this? This is the American Stroke Association. Okay, pretty big deal. This is an org. This isn't a .com. If you've taken English class and you've had to find sources, stay away from Wikipedia. Don't use .coms. Use edus and orgs. So this one sort of checks out. It has the author at the bottom here. I don't know if it showed. I printed that, and I didn't know if I showed that. So, but this is pretty legit. Came out January 2019. Okay, so fairly, it's almost 2 years old, coming up on 2 years old. But this talks about how it says e-cigarettes linked to higher risk of stroke, heart attack, and diseased arteries. So the question that I asked you was, does this prove that? Here we are, our 4 questions up here. Does this prove that smoking e-cigarettes or vaping causes negative health effects? Does it prove that? Sadly, it doesn't. Even as well written as it is, there is really no way that this one article can prove that. Okay? And if you remember from the video, it took many years to get this done, right? You had to have continuous demonstration of association. Hopefully you have I need you to get out your notebook, okay? Because I want you to write these down in your notebook, because I want you to take this away from the video. This is going to be what you'll use to reference when you're working on assignments, okay? So what we have shown here is not causation, but what's called association, okay? So one of the here's the study highlight. E-cigarette smokers may have higher odds of stroke, heart attack, or coronary heart disease. Here's the key word. I'm going to highlight it. May. It doesn't say they do, all right? And any good article, any good researcher who studied statistics, understands the science, knows that one article cannot prove everything, okay? They found a correlation. They found an association with e-cigarette smoking and, all of these symptoms. Some of you may have personal experiences with vaping, as far as like family members and such. Hopefully not yourself, because they moved that age back to 21. Found out last year. So, but this can't be enough. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video and we're going to write down the definition for what's called association. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and say the definition. Association is knowing the value of one variable helps predict the value of the other. So knowing one variable, they vape, helps predict the value of the other, which is they get a stroke, heart attack, coronary heart disease. So let's write down this definition. All right, so you wrote that down. And you'll notice at the end of that definition it says not as strong as causation, because causation is the goal of research. We want to show that one thing causes the other. So let's define causation, which is the ultimate goal. That's the goal of research. It's hard to obtain, but it is your goal as a researcher. Causation is one variable is causing the response, okay? The example is that the vape or the cigarettes caused the cancer, okay? And we know that. But we're not at a place where we can say the vape caused the stroke or the heart attack or the coronary heart disease, okay? We can't say that, all right? One other thing that we want to talk about and why we can't get away with saying that without a doubt this is causing this with the vapes is the idea of confounding. In the video, the lady had talked about confounding. Was it the cigarettes that caused the cancer in the lungs, or was it genetics? Were those people going to go ahead and were they just prone to that lung cancer anyway? That's what the cigarette companies were like, well, that's not true, right? They were going to already die of lung cancer anyway. Let's apply that to the vapes. Let's say that I run my own vape shop and I read this article and I'm like, well, those people probably, already, they have stroke that runs through their family. That's a thing. Heart attacks can run in your family. So all of that, like, they're already genetically, risks for people, just genetics. So that's what makes this so complicated and so much more difficult to prove because of confounding. So let's write down our definition for confounding. When two variables are associated in such a way that their effects on a response, which means the cancer or the strokes, the response, cannot be distinguished from one another. Okay, we can't tell what's causing the strokes. Is it they were going to have a stroke already, or is it the vapes that's doing it or making it worse, right? Okay. And that's going to be our intro here. That is the big picture of statistics. Moving forward in this class, it's going to be very much sort of foundational of how do we make experiments or research, how do we do research that can prove association or excuse me, causation, So that's what the next few lessons are going to be over, is making experiments and experimenting well in such a way like they did in this article. Like they ran experiments, they did an observational study, but they did it what seems well because they are at they're part of the American Stroke Association, so they do their job well. They're not just Joe Schmo on here coming up with stuff, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about. How could you, maybe in your future, do research and write up articles like this? Because you do make money from doing this, okay? You could easily make money from doing this research and coming up with these results, okay? All right, so that's the intro to stats. And we continue. Next lesson's going to be designing studies. Okay.